Pilot's remains an 80-year-old missing plane finally found under the sea. In the heart of the deep blue Adriatic Sea, at a depth of nearly 230 feet, where only darkness and eternal silence are expected, a shocking discovery brought history back into the light. It wasn't a treasure of gold or a sunken ancient ship, but a colossal war machine. A B-17 Flying Fortress bomber, along with the remains of the pilot who had been missing for nearly 80 years. A story long thought forgotten amid the ruins of World War II finally found its closure, and it all began with a chance dive by an amateur war photographer. Have you ever imagined that a photo taken beneath the sea could reconnect the thread of memory broken nearly a century ago? British underwater photographer Steve Jones, driven by his passion for underwater photography, never expected that a photo he took in September 2016 would not only capture the attention of photography enthusiasts, but also touch the heart of a family who had been searching for their loved one for more than 7 decades. On that fateful day, while diving off Vis Island, a small island off the coast of Croatia, with a local Croatian guide, Jones spotted the strange shadowy outline of a massive moss-covered object lying silently amidst sand and coral. As he approached, he nearly held his breath, not from water pressure, but from awe. Right in front of him lay the wreckage of a B-17 Flying Fortress, one of the most iconic bombing machines used by the U.S. Air Force during World War II. But this was not just a lifeless piece of metal. Inside, still seated in the cockpit, was Second Lieutenant Ernest Vino, the pilot of that ill-fated B-17. Shockingly, his remains were still trapped in the cockpit. They hadn't drifted away. They hadn't fully decomposed. It was as if he were still there, continuing a mission that had been left unfinished nearly 8 decades ago. Ernest's story began in the peaceful town of Papanil, Maine. At the age of 25, during the peak years of World War II, he joined Bomber Squadron 340, one of the U.S. Air Force's key units at the time. On a bombing mission over the skies of Yugoslavia, now part of the Balkans, his aircraft was struck by anti-aircraft fire and suffered critical damage. With skill and courage, Ernest tried to steer the plane toward an emergency airstrip on Vis Island, where Allied forces had temporarily established a base. But fate was not on his side. The B-17 never made it to land. It crashed into the Adriatic Sea, and within moments, both the aircraft and its pilot vanished without a trace. The rest of the crew may have parachuted to safety, but Ernest, who held the controls until the very last second, was trapped and sank with his steel fortress. His family received only a short message from the Department of Defense. Second Lieutenant Ernest was killed in action. Body not recovered. They had no place to mourn, no grave, no goodbye. And so, time buried the memory under layers of dust. The war ended. New generations grew up, carrying a quiet sorrow passed down through the years. Until one day, a photo appeared in a photography magazine. Miraculously, Ernest's grandson, who had never known exactly where his grandfather had disappeared, came across the photo. He immediately reached out to Steve Jones, and thus began the delicate stitching of emotion between past and present. Steve recalled, "I was genuinely stunned when I received the message. They had been searching for him for almost 80 years, and I, someone with no connection to the war, just happened to be the one to help them find him." To Ernest's family, it was nothing short of a miracle. They had waited for a name, a location, a piece of evidence, and now they could finally bring him home, returning a part of the family's soul to its final resting place. What made the discovery even more moving was that the B-17, despite the force of the crash, remained eerily intact. Jones described it as if it had just landed at the bottom of the sea. The windows, cockpit, and wings all lay silent, claimed by time and water, yet untouched and undisturbed. It wasn't merely a hunk of steel. It was an underwater tomb, guarding the soul of a devoted soldier. Ernest's family is now working with authorities and international organizations to recover his remains and give him a proper burial back home. They plan to lay him to rest in a cemetery near where he grew up, the final place where memory can truly be at peace. What do you think about the fact that a regular person, not an archaeologist, not a soldier, was the one to reconnect a lost piece of history? Steve Jones never set out to change anyone's life, but with a single click of his camera underwater, he brought comfort to an entire family and helped rewrite a piece of forgotten history. This discovery is more than just a touching story. It reminds us that there are thousands, perhaps tens of thousands, of souls like Ernest, resting in places no one would ever think to look. Each one is a fragment of memory, and sometimes those memories just need a little light, from a flashlight beneath the sea or from a photograph, to come back to life. Do you believe that some memories are still waiting to be uncovered? Not from dust, but from the ocean floor? As for me, I absolutely do, because this world is full of mysteries. Even the most brilliant experts and the most advanced technology can't always explain. Stay with me through the rest of this video to explore some of the most stunning recent archaeological discoveries and the mysterious stories behind them as revealed by today's experts. 400 treasure-filled rooms hidden within a Turkish mountain gorge. In the dry, rocky mountains of western Turkey, where one might expect nothing but dust and silent cliffs, an archaeological discovery has amazed experts worldwide. A mountainside riddled with hundreds of large holes, as if someone had tried to carve a gigantic beehive right into the wild landscape. But when archaeologists ventured inside these openings, what they found was beyond imagination. 400 stone rooms, each as beautifully crafted as a modern luxury hotel suite, filled with treasures, artifacts, and human remains dating back more than 1,800 years. You heard that right. A hotel cemetery, hidden in a mountainside, silently standing for nearly 2 millennia. This is the largest stone tomb complex ever discovered in the world, located in the ancient city of Blandos, a once glorious urban center that thrived thousands of years ago, but now lies in ruins, about 112 miles east of the Aegean Sea. So why would a cemetery be so lavish? And what makes it so special that it shook the archaeological community? Let's travel back in time and explore right now. From the outside, you would see only a gray rocky cliff perforated with about 400 large holes, each as big as a doorway. But inside lies a different world. Burial chambers designed like fairy tale rooms, exquisitely curved vaulted ceilings, stone walls engraved with intricate patterns, and narrow stone pathways leading into separate spaces. Each room can hold one or multiple bodies, placed in finely crafted stone sarcophagi. Dr. Briel Can from Uşak University, the lead archaeologist, says that most of the remains were buried between the 2nd and 4th centuries AD, that is during the Roman Empire period. But it wasn't just burial. The ancients turned this final resting place into a symbol of power and wealth. In every chamber, they left luxurious grave goods, bronze mirrors, gold rings, silver cups, oil lamps, and coins. Unfortunately, many rooms had been visited by grave robbers over the centuries. Signs of vandalism are evident: chipped walls, open sarcophagi, and stolen treasures. Yet, what remains is enough to astonish the world. Can you imagine? Even a broken piece of pottery can offer vivid evidence of how ancient people viewed death, the afterlife, and the luxury of taking treasures to the grave. What makes this discovery captivating is not only the massive scale, 400 burial rooms in one area, but also the historical and architectural context. Blandos was more than a cemetery. It was a flourishing city under the Roman Empire. Archaeologists also found traces of a temple, an ancient basilica, a theater, public baths, a gymnasium, ornate gates, and an intricate underground water system. More than 1,800 years ago, this was a vibrant cultural, religious, and commercial hub, where wealthy nobles lived in silk and velvet, and upon death, rested in stone mansions carved into the mountain slopes. Their wealth extended beyond life, into the afterlife. Naturally, this raises many questions. For example, why did they choose to build tombs like luxury hotels instead of simple burial pits? Was it a way to display status and power, or simply a profound belief in life after death, where they still needed mirrors to look into, lamps to light the way, rings to wear, and gold to spend? Though these questions remain unanswered for now, Dr. Briel Can says the excavation at Blandos is ongoing. Beneath the ground lie more public, religious, and residential structures yet to be uncovered. This means bigger mysteries and more shocking discoveries might still be silently resting in the stone, waiting to be awakened. 2,000-year-old red remains in Herculaneum. This is the story of the fateful moment in 79 AD when Mount Vesuvius awoke with a roar, engulfing all life in ash and lava. Herculaneum, a picturesque town nestled in the shadow of the mighty Vesuvius, was once home to proud Roman citizens. But on one doomed day, the volcano erupted with devastating force, transforming the fertile land into an eternal graveyard. Not only Pompeii, where thousands of residents were frozen in their final moments, some sleeping, some working, others desperately fleeing, but Herculaneum too shared this tragic fate. Torrents of molten lava and thick ash buried everything, from grand homes to the lives screaming in despair. Among the ruins, the red remains found on Herculaneum's ancient beach have become a critical piece of the puzzle, recounting the story of a man facing his final moments in nature's wrath. The remains were identified as belonging to a man aged approximately 40 to 45 years, someone who may have been agonizingly close to survival. Archaeologists believe he fled to the beach, just steps away from a rescue boat. Perhaps he was a brave soldier, rushing into danger to save panicked residents. But whoever he was, his fate was sealed in that horrific moment. A wooden roof, likely collapsed by the intense heat and pressure of the eruption, crushed his head, shattering his skull. Death came swiftly but painfully. So, what caused these remains to take on their eerie red hue, as if stained by some infernal dye? The answer lies in the man's own blood. As he fell, blood from his wounds seeped into his bones. The scorching lava, reaching temperatures of hundreds of degrees Fahrenheit, along with ash and debris from Vesuvius, quickly enveloped his body, creating a near-airtight environment. Under the extreme heat, the blood dried and adhered to the bones, acting like a natural dye. Over nearly 2,000 years, this dried blood was miraculously preserved, turning the remains into a vivid testament to the tragedy. The brilliant red is not only a trace of a painful death, but also a reminder of life's fragility against nature's power. This discovery sheds light not only on one man's fate, but also on the broader Vesuvius disaster. Though less famous than Pompeii, Herculaneum holds unique secrets due to its exceptional preservation conditions. The intense heat from the eruption sealed many artifacts and remains, allowing scientists to reconstruct the final moments of its inhabitants. A 2,500-year-old headless body still has an intact kidney. On a damp morning in the peaceful region of Belugie, Northern Ireland, where endless peat bogs stretch beneath thick fog, a shocking discovery stunned the entire archaeological community. What seemed like nothing more than deep, dark mud turned out to be hiding secrets buried for over 2 millennia. The story began like a modern-day crime case. In October 2023, the Police Service of Northern Ireland received a report of scattered human bones found in a bog. The area was immediately cordoned off. An investigation team was dispatched, fully prepared for what they thought would be a contemporary homicide. But no one expected this case to take them back 2,500 years. As archaeologists and forensic specialists began analyzing the remains, they quickly realized this was no modern tragedy. Although the skeleton was incomplete, it had been remarkably well preserved, thanks to the anaerobic conditions of the peat bog. Did you know that a bog, seemingly harsh and lifeless, is actually one of the best places on Earth for time to stand still? In such environments, decay enzymes are neutralized, bacteria struggle to survive, and bodies do not decompose the way they typically would. And because of that, this particular body survived 25 centuries in near-original condition. A section of skin from the left hand, fingernails, toenails, and, most astonishingly, a kidney were still intact. Yes, you read that correctly. A soft internal organ, normally the first to decompose in a human body, was still present after 2,500 years. This is such a rare phenomenon that it's nothing short of a miracle. What makes this discovery even more mysterious is that the skull was completely missing. Not a single trace of it was found. So what happened? Was this a ritual sacrifice, an ancient execution, or a mysterious death swallowed up by nature? These questions drove a team of experts to investigate with full force. The remains were identified as those of a male who died at only around 13 to 17 years old, a teenager, just as life should have been opening up before him. Inspector Nikki Dehan, who led the investigation, stated that this was one of the best preserved sets of remains ever found in the region. Because of this exceptional condition, researchers were able, for the first time ever in Northern Ireland, to apply carbon isotope dating to determine the precise time of death of a bog body. The 14 Chrono Research Centre at Queen's University Belfast concluded that the teenager had died sometime between 500 BCE and 0 CE during the Late Iron Age, a time when ancient beliefs, ritual sacrifices, and even brutal customs were still widely practiced across Europe. But that's not all. Researchers then used high-resolution ground-penetrating radar to scan the surrounding area. Thanks to this advanced technology, they discovered that the body had been buried at a depth of approximately 3.3 feet, a depth that perfectly matches the carbon dating results. This not only confirmed the burial timeframe, but also revealed how the body was hidden, or perhaps stored, within the bog. Even more intriguingly, the skeleton was discovered amidst a cluster of fossilized trees, which has led to a new theory. The boy may have died and been buried in a grassy field or a bushy area, or more disturbingly, he may have been swept into the bog by a natural force, such as a sudden flood or a landslide. Whether it was by chance or by design, his body sank, and from that moment on, time was sealed. A young boy, who lived thousands of years ago, suddenly vanished into the cold waters of the bog, and his preserved body has now become a key to unlocking a forgotten chapter of human history. Over 2,000 years later, modern people meet him for the first time, through a hand still wrapped in skin, a kidney still intact, and fragments of bones scattered among ancient mud. And what if he's not the only one? How many more headless bodies could be lying silently beneath the icy layers of peat, waiting to be discovered? Human remains in Pompeii's rubble move experts to tears. A death hidden for 2,000 years. The ancient city of Pompeii, a name long synonymous with sudden doom. Once a proud and thriving hub of the Roman Empire, it was reduced to a living hell in a single fateful day in 79 AD. But what haunts us most isn't the volcanic ash, it's the people, the stories buried beneath the ruins, now slowly returning to the modern world through the fragments of their remains. In May 2023, archaeologists announced a discovery that stirred deep emotions. 2 sets of human remains were found in the ruins of Pompeii, and they were so powerful, they brought seasoned experts to tears. The 2 men, both believed to be around 50 years old, did not die from scorching lava or searing ash columns. No, they were not burned alive like so many others discovered before. Their deaths were quieter, more tragic, buried beneath their own home. Gabriel Zuchtriegel, director of the Pompeii Archaeological Park, confirmed that both victims died due to a building collapse, a direct consequence of the eruption and the powerful earthquakes that followed. They didn't perish in the explosive fury of the volcano, but in a terrifying sequence of moments as their roof caved in, walls collapsed on their chests and spines, and every attempt at survival became hopeless. Imagine that moment. You're inside your familiar home, the last safe place amid a storm of fire. The roar of the volcano echoes, the ground shakes as if trying to swallow everything whole. And then, in an instant, the roof gives way. No time to run, no time to scream. Only darkness, ash, and eternal silence. The debris that crushed their bodies still bears cracks, evidence of the tremendous weight of volcanic rock and the violent tremors that brought the entire structure down. No one outside knew they were there. No one came to save them. And for nearly 2 millennia, they remained, silent, with no one to tell their story. Until now. Pompeii is no stranger to shocking discoveries, but archaeologists say the emotions they felt this time were unlike anything in previous excavations. Because these 2 weren't found in a public square, or on a street, or in a bathhouse, they were found in what had once been a home, possibly the one place they believed would keep them safe. And it's that intimacy, that everyday familiarity, that makes this tragedy cut deeper than ever. Back in 2020, Pompeii made headlines when archaeologists uncovered 2 skeletons lying atop one another in the Civita Juliana area, a wealthy suburb of the ancient city. It's believed one was a wealthy nobleman, the other his male slave. They tried to flee when Mount Vesuvius erupted, but the ash cloud was too fast, too thick. They suffocated, buried under nearly 6.5 feet of volcanic ash, as if nature itself refused to give them one last chance. Even earlier, in 2018, another haunting discovery: the remains of a man crushed by a massive stone block. He may have been running, perhaps believing he'd survive if he just made it a few steps farther. But luck had run out. The stone had rolled off a collapsing roof, slamming down and crushing him right in the street. Death came swiftly, violently, and full of despair. All these fragments, from noblemen to slaves, from those who ran to those buried inside their homes, reveal a brutal truth. Pompeii chose no one. It killed everyone, no matter their status. It didn't care if they were rich or poor. It didn't even ask for their names. And the discoveries, like those of May 2023, are more than just archaeological stories. They are witnesses to a collective tragedy where every death carried very human emotions: fear, helplessness, hope, and despair. But you know what's strange? In Pompeii, the catastrophe itself became the reason time stopped. Mount Vesuvius didn't just bury the city, it preserved it. Everything was frozen in place, from wall paintings, household tools, to uneaten loaves of bread still in the oven, and human remains in their final postures. So, what do you think? Who were the newly discovered remains? Were they neighbors, friends, or perhaps just two strangers who happened to take shelter under the same roof in their final moments? Share your thoughts in the comments below, because stories like this don't just teach us about history, they connect us to the past in a deeply emotional way. If you found this journey through Pompeii thought-provoking, don't forget to like the video, share it with your loved ones, and subscribe to the channel so you can join us on future journeys into history, where ashes, bones, and memories whisper back to life. For now, goodbye, and see you next time.